As a kid, I always loved the outdoors, spending my summers along the beaches in Washington State, later climbing mountains in the Cascades. In my 20s, I grew sedentary, smoking a pack a day, drinking too much beer, and pushing 200 pounds. Then I started running. 5Ks became 10Ks, 10Ks became marathons. This year, I turned 60 and ran my 136th marathon. Having now lived at the foot of Pikes Peak for nearly 20 years, I have found a place to call home. Opening more trails and making Pikes Peak more accessible to hikers and runners. This has become an obsession.
"52 of the highest mountains in the country are in Colorado. And though Pikes Peak is not quite the highest of all, it is surely the most famous of all America's sky-brushing mountains. And when Lieutenant Zebulon Pike first discovered it and failed in his attempts to climb it, he wrote in his diary that the forbidding mountain would never be climbed by mortal man. Here we could almost reach out and touch the clouds, which inspired Catherine Lee Bates to write the song loved by every American, America the Beautiful.
Millions of tourists take the train or drive their cars up Pikes Peak. Some of us prefer to be closer to the ground. In the early 2000s, an organization called Friends of the Peak began work on a trail that would circumnavigate the mountain. What transpired was a patchwork of existing trails connecting to several new trails. Still, there were many gaps. Hikers were often forced to drop down to the highway below. On an October morning in 2009, I set out with my sleeping bag, some energy bars, and my dog, Chewy. My plan, if a little vague, was to fully hike around the mountain. October 23rd, I'm doing the Ring the Peak Trail. There's sections of it that aren't finished, maybe never will be. Through those, I'm going to have to ad-lib, maybe even trespass a little bit. They want you to go up to the Highway 24 through Cascade, but I'm going to try and keep it all on trails as much as I can. I didn't want to run on that damn highway. I'm going to go up here because I can bushwhack up French Creek, which is going to be right up there in the shadow. That cleft is we're going to bushwhack up. We'll see how it goes.
If you look at these long trails, like obviously you have the Appalachian Trail and you have the Pacific Crest Trail. Shorter than those, you have the Colorado Trail. But even the Colorado Trail is 500 miles, and it's not something your average backpacker is going to go out and do. 62 miles around Pikes Peak, I can do that. A lot of people have gotten involved with Friends of the Peak because of the Ring.
Ring the Peak is going to involve, 3, 5, 7 jurisdictions easily. And we're talking different counties, we're talking different communities. All of these jurisdictions have different sets of rules. They all have different time frames.
I noticed on the first action item that you mentioned Bison Reservoir and the 100-foot band around Bison Reservoir. And then you say the trail won't cross city property.
No, they would not have the trail on that strip of land because it's reserved for the fishermen at the fishing club.
These are 2 studies that I found that have come out. It's hard to find something that is an exact match. There aren't a lot of rings around peaks around the country that really set up exactly the same way. But there's plenty of information on trails that have been created and what they have found, like in Minnesota. After they've put it in, it has 12 B&Bs, 8 restaurants. This town has really benefited from that trail.
You talked about economic development and turning a small town into something really great.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's what Victor would
I
want.
know, we gotta
Right.
be real careful.
We don't want to talk about tourists coming in and taking over their town. We want to talk about tourists coming in, buying lunch, and leaving. There's two main gaps remaining. We're making progress, but we're trying to be careful of approaching people because we want to make sure we're generating support and not generating opposition.
I think trails are great, but I moved to my property so that it would be rural, unincorporated.
My concerns: number one, parking; number two, maintenance, which means washouts, pet and horse feces.
With more people running through, I can't, just looking at somebody, I can't tell if this guy's a hiker or this guy's a registered sex offender.
I'm Steve Bremner. I live in Manitou Springs. I'm lucky if I see one other person on that new Ute Pass trail. This trail would be great just for connectivity. I think it's going to be a great asset to your community, to Cascade, to have that trail. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking. So I'd just like to point that out. That's my point of view.
The challenges that Friends of the Peak has is that we're a bunch of trail people, and we like working on trails, building trails, designing trails, maintaining trails, and don't really have political connections.
This is real mountain lion country. Saw some tracks back there. What do you think, Chewy? Well, 2 hours into it. Boy, that was a hassle. Had to get up and over those cliffs. All right, so this isn't looking like so much fun. I might just bushwhack over to the other side.
The biggest gap, and probably the most challenging gap, is on the southwest side of the peak. Various people have scouted routes over there, and I've seen 7 different routes that would be possible to go through there. But the question is obviously getting the approvals.
We have to be diplomatic with private property owners. If we alienate them, they won't talk to us. Another solution to fill in the gap might be to build trails higher in elevation, up into public land. But there's a problem with this approach too. A herd of some 100 bighorn sheep makes their home there.
That herd is not doing really well because of a high fatality rate among the lambs. So as long as the herd's not doing well, responsibly, we can't do something to put more stress on the sheep.
I've been going for 6 hours and 43 minutes, and I got 19.4 miles on my watch. Man, this is slow going. I've only done a third. This guy's got plenty of energy. I'm at 10,000 feet and lots of snow. And the sun's gone down. Damn. This is the pits. I don't think I'm going to make it. 8 inches of snow. I'm just trotting along.
This is me, Rebecca, saving Steve's ass right now. I just plucked him off the highway, him and the dog.
My toes are cold.
His toes are cold, but I had to give up an evening of leisure.
I gave up.
To get a little more solid ground, too.
Right. So we want to dig uphill.
Yep, all the way that right. Yep.
Narrow.
When they stop, they're going to move it back. Just reach in with your hands and pull the dirt out.
So once the
retaining wall gets built up, it's going to be slightly below the level of the trail now, right behind Mark. The water will all funnel down and go over the retaining wall, and the retaining wall will defend the trail edge to keep it from eroding out. The goal is to make it so that it lasts 15, 20 years at least, or maybe more if you can. We're working on Raspberry Mountain, right? We're ready to assist the county with Ute Pass Trail, but there's nothing planned right now for that, so we wait for next year, I guess, right? We could engage in the fundraising campaign, and that might be the impetus that makes things move forward. But we have to have an approved and solid plan first, and right now, we still got a lot of foot dragging from all the entities involved, including some of the public entities like Forest Service and BLM.
Steve, good to meet you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you haven't met.
Grew up out east, outside of Philadelphia, and lived all up and down the coast. So I did a 3-month cross-country trip, figure out where I wanted to live. And I started in Santa Fe and worked my way north and just came through the Springs and just loved it. And it's exclusively because of the access to trails.
There's nothing else. You can take turns over there, and that way both of you will laugh.
There's a kind of magic when community comes together to work on a trail. Hikers often stop to thank us, and many will sign up for future work days. Community, conversation, and connection. These are the values that embody the movement to build Ring the Peak. Now we're back on the old trail. I may have failed that first attempt in 2009, but it hasn't stopped me. Each year since, I've enlisted friends to make the trek with me, scouting out new routes and trails around the peak.
No, I think we got to go drop down in the next valley, see where that rock is,
Okay.
to go on that deep trail to the side of that.
All right.
A few of us started an annual Ring the Peak fun run, beginning at 4 a.m. and finishing around dusk. Now we get to have fun.
Cool, look at it. Good morning. I think it's around 6:30.
The freedom we feel out on the mountain is hard to put into words. But one thing I can say, more people should be able to experience it.